Your content might be brilliant. In fact, it probably is because I know the people who hang out with me on these videos, and you are experts at what you do. But if the layout of your book looks like a DIY afterthought, readers won't make it past page one or chapter one. They might not even buy the book if they take a look inside.
Pour a cup of clarity, sip a spark of insight. Coffee with karma, your morning feels just right.
So, in this episode of Coffee with Karma, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 tweaks you can make to the interior of your book so that it looks professional and helps people read the entire book so they get your message and it looks good. Kindle, physical book, and anywhere your book shows up. Hi, my name is Carma Spence, and I help big thinkers, visionary leaders, and seasoned experts write, publish, and market client attracting books that drive business growth and help them be go to authorities in their industries. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell so that the YouTube algorithm understands that this video is good for people who, like you, who want to grow their business with books. So let's get to the first tip. Stick to a maximum of 2 font families. Ideally, you want one serif font and one sans serif font. What I've found in general is that in print, the titles need to be sans serif and the body needs to be serif. For some reason, in print, serif fonts are easier to read. The reverse is true online. For some reason, sans serif fonts are easier to read. So, like on your website, you want a sans serif font to be the body and the serif font to be the titles. I do not understand why that is the case, but that has been shown in multiple studies that I'm aware of. And if you have too many fonts, it just makes things look clutter. So just choose your 2. One's always the titles, one is always the body, and go with it. Choosing a clean serif font over like a fancy one is better. So stick to the classics. You've got Times, you've got Playfair, things like that. And then for your sans serif, Arial, Helvetica, very simple, accessible everywhere. Number 2, align chapter openings consistently. So if you've decided that every chapter starts on a facing page, aka an odd numbered page, then every chapter should start that way. And it's okay if there's a blank page in order to make that happen. Or if you've just decided you're just going to use every page as is, then that means sometimes the chapters will be on the right and sometimes they'll be on the left. And if that is consistent, meaning that it just depends on how long the chapter is, that's fine. I've found that in general, more professional ones always start on the right-hand side. So they're always on an odd numbered page. I'm not saying you can't do it the other way. It just looks more professional if you do it that way. But again, the most important thing is consistency. It builds a subconscious trust and a sense of flow. Number 3, avoid justified text for print on demand. So, justified is where no matter what, the paragraphs will start on one side and end on the other. And that means that sometimes the spacing in the words is bigger and smaller, and which can look very elegant in small doses, but for an entire book, it makes it harder to read. Now, I know that a lot of books do it this way, especially in mass paperback, which, by the way, I understand that mass paperback sales are dropping. I don't understand. That's my favorite format to read in, but whatever. At least in nonfiction, it's usually a 6 by 9 for the paperback, and the hardcover is a little bit larger. And in those formats, it reads better if it's got a jagged right side. Number 4, design for print and digital readability. That means choose fonts, sizes, and spacing that will work in both your print and Kindle screen. Again, like I said, it's a give and take. Choose one. I'm finding that, like, Playfair, these are the serif fonts, and if you make them a large enough size, like maybe depending on the thing, with a Kindle, people can make it larger or smaller as the re the reader lets them do, but you want it to be readable, and also depending on who your audience is. The older your audience, the larger the font. So if your audience is primarily people over 50, you're gonna want a larger font. And the reason I know this is because I worked for many years in the healthcare newsletter space, and whenever we'd had a senior magazine, we actually had the font, like, almost twice the size as the regular readers who were under 50. You know, I'm over 50. I've already started noticing, yeah, I have to hold the book a little bit closer than I used to. It's a fact of life that many people over 50 find it harder to see small fonts. So if you've got people over 50 in your audience, you want a larger font. And number 5, add pull quotes or highlights to anchor key takeaways. So there's different ways you can do this. You can actually have like a pull quote that's big and it can appear on the same page as the actual pull quote or another page, depends on your strategy. You can also highlight things. Or and here's another way that you can do the same thing, but it doesn't interrupt your flow and makes it easier to lay out, is at the end of every chapter, say, "Key highlights of this chapter," and then bullet points of what those key takeaways are. There's different ways you can do this, but the whole point of this is to help readers understand what is the key takeaway here? What is it? Why is it important? Why should they know it? So there you go. 5 tips to help you make a more professional interior design for your book. On Monday, I covered covers, and on Friday, I will be back with 5 author slip ups straight out of Pulp Fiction. I'll see you then. Until then, this is Carma Spence saying ciao for now.